Hey, TJ, thanks for joining us, man. We're obviously recording this, and I've kind of given a brief introduction to you, but if we can, we're going to go around the room, just introduce ourselves real quick, and that way you know who you're talking to as an audience. And then if you could just take 15, 20 minutes, up to you, just to kind of open the floor on your background, where you're at now, and some of the topics, and then feel free to discuss those items like the list you showed me, and then we'll open the floor to questions. So starting with Gunner here.
Gunner Sergeant Barnes, nice to meet you.
Staff Sergeant Krause, nice to meet you, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Gunner Sergeant Swan.
Good afternoon, sir. Lance Corporal Kruger.
Good afternoon, sir. Gunner Sergeant Arnold.
Good afternoon, sir. Gunner Sergeant Flores here.
Good afternoon, sir. Staff Sergeant Wilkerson.
Good afternoon, sir. Staff Sergeant Jacobs.
Good afternoon, sir. Sergeant Sass.
Good afternoon, sir. Staff Sergeant Sarback.
Sir, how you doing? Captain Marquez.
Good afternoon, sir. Captain Gonzalez, the S3 officer here, the man behind the camera.
And it's Lieutenant Colonel Julian Sicano, commander of Marnet. All right, I'll turn it over to you, TJ.
Okay, well, thanks for having me, and thanks for your attention here. I love talking in front of people and sharing our story, We Defy Foundation story, and I'm really excited to talk to you all and share some of what we do and how I think it benefits veterans, people that have served in the military and tried to deal with navigating the challenges that occur in military service and in regular civilian life and making the transitions back and forth. I think the first thing I want to do before I really introduce myself too much is go right to that This Is Normal video. It kind of gives you an introduction to what this organization does.
This is normal. I wouldn't wish this burden on my worst enemy. Everywhere I turn, some doctor is offering me a prescription. Some good Samaritan is offering me a handout. Both numb the pain, but neither heal it. Where did my purpose go? Where did the man that led his peers go? He used to scream at me every morning to go for a run, work hard at the task at hand, and beat the odds. I joined the military because at the time I was homeless, didn't really have anywhere else to go. And after about 2 years of trying to feed myself, I knew that if I joined the military, I'd at least get 3 meals a day.
My MOS was a 0331 machine gunner and injured in combat, PTSD and tinnitus from IED, roadside bombs.
My job that I had in the military, I was what's called an 0351 anti-armored assault man. Basically, you're infantry, you attach with a line platoon, but you carry TNT, blast caps, C4, a couple of rockets. In the case of a technical vehicle, a breach that needs to happen, or a door that needs to be punched through.
If I could choose whether to start over and do it different or the same, I'd probably do most of the stuff the same, but change like the little tweaks where it caused an argument or divorce or my kids hurtful things.
When I got home from the military, I had a really hard time adapting into society. Because I joined due to the fact of I was homeless, all my long adult relationships started in the military. That was my life, and then they were gone right away. So whenever I became a civilian again, I didn't know how to manage adult friendships. I didn't know how to cope with my loss, my grief, my anxiety. So my adult life post-Marine Corps was one filled with alcohol, drugs, self-destructive behavior, separating myself from, being a normal, productive citizen.
It's like waking up feeling motivated. in the beginning, it kind of took that away from me. I kind of didn't know how to really transition back into regular civilian life. Had gave me issues drinking and, you know what I mean, depression, and it struggled on my marriage, my kids. And I'm just now starting to supersede that and get past that.
I would follow the exact same course all the way up until when I got out and didn't really get the help that I needed or seek out the relationships that would help me move forward into becoming a contributing member of society. I found out about We Defy Foundation through a fellow Marine by the name of Chris Blow, who trains here at Shabaro and is somewhat involved in the organization. We've been friends for quite some time, and my stress and anxiety was peaking to the point where, you know, I was chasing my fiance down the hall in the middle of the night. You know, I was having these really bad recurring dreams. One night, I put my foot through the wall, messed my foot up pretty bad. I had to go to the emergency room, and then the very next day, Chris reached out and said, I need to come up here no matter what. I just had to come surgery. Yes, I did find relief from Brazilian Jiu Jitsu because the one thing that it did for me is I come in here and get my ass kicked for multiple hours, and especially here at Shabaro's place, you know, half the people here are vets, and the other ones, some of them are law enforcement, and there's just an accountability attitude that really made me come in here and give my all. So by the time I was done here and on my way home, a lot of the voices and the anxiety were quiet. And go home, take a shower, enjoy my partner, get a full night's rest. It really started to make a difference pretty quickly.
I found out about We Defy Foundation by a Marine Corps brother of mine, Ben Krosky. He just moved to Texas. He's been training jiu-jitsu for like 10 plus years. He was telling me, bro, you gotta try it. I found this new gym. They got this We Defy Foundation, veterans, you know what I mean? So I just moved out here 3 weeks ago from Philadelphia to like start my life over. And it's the first place he took me. Found a lot of relief, a lot of stress reliever. Definitely bonding with people, especially other veterans. And it's helping me bond with civilians more too, because I had a tendency of like staring away from them, you know what I mean? I would hang out at veteran bars, go to veteran events, stuff like that. So it helps me try to mesh the two together.
We Defy Foundation has supported my life for multiple reasons. You know, yes, it helps me deal with anxiety and stress, and it gets me outside of myself and my head. It puts things into perspective. And when you get your butt kicked for 2 or 3 hours, everything else in life is just so quiet, it makes so much more sense. But also, the chance to be a part of an organization that's making a difference in lives and empowering our fellow veterans is very important. Vets, we're not broken machines. We're people just like you are. We just, we joined up, we fought for the country, now we're back trying to move on with our lives. We don't need to be treated with kid gloves. We just want the same opportunities that everyone else wants. There is so much importance to what We Defy is doing on multiple levels. Yes, Jiu-Jitsu is fantastic. Yes, it's great for personal and professional development, and it's great for empowerment. But some of the veterans who need We Defy have personal struggles that some of us will never understand. And for them to be around a group of people who are supportive, but also don't treat them with kid gloves, they treat them like a regular person, it is so empowering for them that I think that some of us would struggle to understand how important it is. My hero, that's a ridiculous question, no. You know, in Ambush Alley, there were people who sacrificed themselves to save lives. You know, the Manuel Espinoza Garcia, the corporal who is in charge of our mortar section, kept his mortar on track and kept it on fire to great injury to himself. He's had 23 surgeries since he got out. He's a hero. There were people who, our forward air commander, for our FAC, he stood up under fire and pointed out enemy artillery positions or enemy 83 mortars. Lost his life. He's a hero. I'm just some dumb kid.
People say we're heroes. I don't consider myself a hero. And the reason I don't is because I know plenty of veterans I've seen, plenty of brothers I served with, do way more, achieve way more, and with less. So I'm trying to get to that level. So I don't consider myself a hero because they're the level I'm trying to get at. They're my heroes.
This is normal.
The pride in success, the humility in defeat. I defy the standards that have held me down in the past. We are accountable to our coaches, our families, and to our peers. We are healing. We defy.
So I'm going to give you a little introduction to what We Defy Foundation is before I talk about too much about my background. We Defy Foundation was started in McKinney, Texas by a former special operations Army guy that had a lot of deployments and trained SEAL teams and everybody. And he was one of those guys. And he was, I think, the first black belt in the Army, at least in Jiu Jitsu. And when he got out, he opened a gym in Texas. And one day, a vet came in that wanted his daughter to try Jiu Jitsu as an activity. And this particular veteran, that guy's name is Alan Shabaro, the special operations guy. And this other veteran that came in, his name is Joey Bozick, and he is a triple amputee. And he brought his daughter in to try classes. And after a class or two, Alan asked Joey, so why don't you train? And Joey, at first, said, I don't know if I can do that. I mean, he's in the wheelchair. He's got, the physical limitations he has. But Alan talked him into it. And over time, in private lessons, they figured out how to adapt jiu-jitsu to Joey's situation. And before too long, Joey started going to classes with all the other students. And eventually Joey started competing. And if you go on YouTube and you look up Joey Bozick, and I've got the link here, just to his background so you guys can maybe see that later. You can watch him compete and, with one arm and the physical limitations that he has. And as he went through that process and practiced and met people in this gym and trained and made relationships, he started to realize that he was changing his life. He was adapting through diet and through exercise and through community to the life he was living now. And Joey and Alan at one point said, maybe this is something we can introduce to other veterans. And they started We Defy Foundation with that in mind. I went to the Air Force Academy. I retired as a lieutenant colonel last summer. I had 11 years on active duty and then 9 in the reserves. I flew F-16s in Iraq and Korea, and then became a T-38 instructor pilot for a while and did that in the Air Force Reserves too. And I got into jiu-jitsu because once I joined the reserves and they had a different schedule, we moved from Texas to Minnesota, I started to have, different time constraints or different amounts of open time. So I got into some Muay Thai and some other combatives. And because of my airline career, the doctor said, I don't suggest you do striking sports because of the concussion risk, because the FAA doesn't like concussions. I said, that's fair enough. I want to do something. I started to really love combat sports, but I made the agreement with myself that I would just train jiu-jitsu because that particular aspect for my career was a factor. And at that time, I was commuting to the Air Force Reserves. I was commuting to another job. We just had a kid. I was in a new community, and I was going through some of the most significant anxiety and stress of my entire life, trying to figure out how do I juggle all that stuff. And jiu-jitsu helped me balance it. And I'm going to talk a little later about why and how. The foundation itself works primarily with veterans who have a DD-214, an 80% VA disability rating, and an honorable discharge. But I'm not just talking about this concept in relation to veterans after the military, because there's a whole lot that applies to why you're still going through it in terms of adaptability and resiliency. There are other organizations out there that kind of do what we do. We were kind of the first one to specifically focus on jiu-jitsu. I mean, you may have heard of like Mission 22 or some of the other veteran focused nonprofits, but there's one called Ronin Foundation that's new, that tries to help provide some scholarships to active duty people. And I can get a little more information about them. And then we also have a sister organization in the UK called Reorg, and there's a new stand-up in Australia called Veteran Grappling as well. And so we're just building this community of mostly of veterans, some of them active duty, but people that are trying to use this practice to help veterans navigate challenges. Jiu-jitsu itself is unique for a couple different aspects. I think any recreational activity that you can engage in obviously is healthy, right? We know that. Fitness is obviously important and is a huge part of jiu-jitsu. There's endorphins that you create through physical activity that anybody gets the benefit of. If you suffer from depression or anxiety, or you have PTSD symptoms, there are processes going on in you with your fight or flight system that that system wasn't really built for. It was built to be activated and utilized. And when you have anxiety or depression, that system gets fired up all the time and can lead to hypervigilance and all kinds of other symptoms because it's not actually being utilized. So fitness, and one of the reasons we talk about going to the gym and that being important for mental health, is because it actually helps you decrease those bad chemicals. And in jiu-jitsu, when someone is trying to choke you or break your arm, that fight or flight system gets used. And another component to this is, if you've ever dealt with anxiety or depression, or maybe if it's never been diagnosed, but it's something you're dealing with, we get into what's called rumination thought loops, where ruminating is a problem-solving process. And a lot of times when people start off with anxiety or depression, and I'm not a mental health counselor, I have a background in psychology from my undergrad, but I continue to study this stuff as a layman, partly because of my association with We Defy Foundation. You get into these thought loops where you try to solve a problem, but there's no solution. And you keep coming back to it. You keep coming back to it. You keep coming back to it. And that ends up increasing cortisol and all these other negative chemicals that are affecting your physiology. When you do jiu-jitsu, you are now taking your body from this kind of fight or flight activation that you've got as a baseline, but now you're being choked, or now somebody's trying to break your arm or fight you or do all these things, and you're competitive, you want to win, and there's a threat. And all those thought loops and all that stuff that's going on, all those problems you're trying to solve, you stop. Because you're only focused on one thing, and that's immediate survival. It's actually rekeying the fight or flight system to do what it's intended to do. And it gives you a break and breaks up those rumination loops. So when you do this practice over and over and over, it helps you to get into a habit of breaking up those loops, and it improves your mental health. It's a therapeutic practice. Human touch is part of jiu-jitsu, and I think it's unique in that sport. And there's so many taboos with touch, and with right now it's hard, with COVID and all the isolation that we're dealing with. It's important to touch people. And, we see it with our families and our kids. We touch our kids until they're so old they don't want us to do it anymore. They just want to be away from us. And we don't like that as parents. That it's something we know happens and it's part of growing up, but that touch is important. And you get that in jiu-jitsu. Even though you're fighting, there are chemicals and human bonds that are built on touch. And I think it's a really subtle but really important reason as to why jiu-jitsu is very positive as a therapeutic. Another, I think, benefit for veterans is because there's structure in it, where there's belts, there's a ranking system, and everybody in the gym kind of knows where everybody else is. It's a community that has its own little pecking order, so it's very familiar to veterans. And I think for a lot of veterans that have left the military, one thing that they have major challenges with is the lack of control they feel about their surroundings. You're used to things in the military being structured in a very specific way. And when that is removed, that controlling feeling is also gone. It can be difficult to deal with. So to me, a good jiu-jitsu gym has a structure that is familiar, and it gives you something to count on with class times. And even if, it's Tuesday or Sundays, man, for people that have like Monday through Friday jobs, I remember this when I was a cadet at the Air Force Academy, I hated Sundays because Monday it all started over. And studying and everything, and my anxiety level, even in pilot training, my anxiety level was always the highest on Sundays in a training environment because I knew Monday, here it goes again. I think having positive things to count on throughout the week contribute to a positive sense of control for veterans that are searching for things when they're looking for a job and their family life is challenging and they're trying to navigate all this stuff. A fourth aspect of what's great about jiu-jitsu and the gyms that we put people in and we sponsor them in is the sense of community. And, we have identities as warriors that I think it's really difficult to adjust and adapt, especially after the military. And a lot of soldiers come back either from deployment or leaving the military with what I call a trust deficit. And part of it comes from combat deployments where, you're in an environment where you don't know who you can trust other than the people in your unit and the people immediately around you. And when you are put in that environment over and over and over, you learn not to trust. That trusting is dangerous. That trust can lead to risk and threat, which then goes back to the anxiety and the depression parts and how these things all start to feed together. And when people leave the military, that identity of warrior is in some ways stripped from them, or they feel like it is. So you get put in this gym community where now there's, lawyers and soccer moms and high school dropouts. And, there's kids in there that are, struggling with bullying. And there's adults in there who have never done anything athletic in their entire life. There's so many different kinds of every socioeconomic background, every way that Americans are different. Those people are in the gym. And now you have a community that is practicing a warrior sport that has that warrior spirit. And you start to realize as a vet that these other people aren't that different from you. And they may not exactly understand your story, but when you spend time with them and you fight with them and you take care of them by not injuring them, by tapping and by respecting the tap, all those things start to build trust. And you learn that everyone has a story. Every person in that gym has trauma, anxiety, depression. Everybody's dealing with something. And that's a very important thing for veterans, because veterans leave the military a lot of times not understanding or not feeling like the average American is going to understand the decisions they had to make, the constraints that were placed on them, and how they had to try to navigate them as best they could in a combat life or death scenario. And, the civilians in the gym, they might not understand exactly what you dealt with, but you gain an appreciation for each other through trust. And a lot of it comes just, and this has been, I've heard this several times, that where soldiers have said, knowing that if I tap out, the attack stops, that person's going to respect that. That helps them to trust again, to little deposits in a bank account, to learn to trust and to have that sense of control again. And so most of our focus group or most of our veterans that we sponsor are combat deployment or have combat related disability. But we also work with people who have dealt with sexual trauma too, because there is a trust component that can be built on through this practice. And the last piece of it to me is achievement. We're all, as veterans, very motivated and very competitive, very achievement-based. You look at Joey, who was a triple amputee. In his first match, he lost. But he didn't get destroyed. He lost 6-4 on points. He scored points on a guy with all his limbs because he knew how to use this sport and he had worked on it and they tailored it and he put the mat time in and the study in to make it work for him. And our motto is prove them wrong. And a lot of times, I've had veterans tell me the VA doctor said they would never be able to do this kind of activity. Or maybe their mental health practitioner said, this anxiety has to be handled here in this way before you can take on the next thing. So a lot of veterans leave the service with people telling them what they can no longer do or what they can't do, what their limitations are. So the motto started off as prove them wrong to prove those people wrong. But something I learned is we all have voices in our own heads. And I call it the naysayer. And it's the one that, like, I had a match in a world championship competition that I won at my belt level and my weight and age. And I didn't sleep the night before because I was just thinking all these things about, man, what am I even doing? Here's a world championship. Like, who am I? I didn't do anything to earn this. I'm just here. This is crazy that I'm going to do this. And at some point through the night, I stopped those thoughts and I started thinking, yeah, but I've done everything. I worked as hard as everybody else there. I've earned everything that everyone else has earned too. And I recognized that voice inside of me was a naysayer. And that's the voice we try to help people prove wrong. It's not so much the other voices, the external voices, it's the ones inside that are saying, if you go to this competition, you're going to lose. The day-to-day training on the mats, if you go against this guy, he always beats you because he's better. And yet you got to get back on the mat and do it again over and over. And I think that repetitiveness leads to a very special kind of achievement that you might get in other recreational activities. But I mean, you think about like Jiu Jitsu versus like Taekwondo and other sports that are more tailored for kids or families or things like that. Jiu Jitsu is very different. And it is hardcore. And people will take you as hard as you want to go with them on the mats, and of all ages. And in putting yourself in that environment over and over and benefiting from those other components I talked about, it leads you to a place where you can achieve things you did not know you could pull off. And you start to see that the people around you in that community are doing the same thing, and they aren't soldiers. They're just average people, really just like you are. I had a squadron commander when I was a young captain, and he wanted to meet with everybody, one-on-one, all the pilots in the squadron. And as pilots, we have a yearly physical, and part of it's a psych exam. It's not anything crazy, but they always say, are you stressed out? Are you, how do you feel? Blah, blah, blah. And those are very common analytics they use now, but when I was a young lieutenant, that was not something they asked all the time. There was a transitioning focus to mental health, but it wasn't there yet. And one of the things he told me was when he was younger and would go through those appointments, and they'd get to the mental health part and say, are you stressed out? Are you on edge? Are you this? Are you that? He always said no. He basically lied. And he told me straight up. I always did. I always lied about it because I was afraid of the consequences of speaking up. And he said the last few years, so this is towards the end of his career, he started in those conversations saying, yeah, I'm really stressed. This is a hard job. Deployments are difficult. They're hard on me and they're hard on my family. And after he did that and started talking about those things, he realized that the consequences for that, for seeking that help, or not even seeking help, just talking about it, were only made up in his head. His naysayer was the one telling him, don't tell them what's really happening. Don't let them see you're hurting. Don't let them see the stress. And when he actually did it, nothing bad happened. When I was going through my challenges, towards the end of my active duty time, and then where we had a fatality on base, which kind of led through just a really rough time for me that lasted a long time. I was really scared to tell anyone and to get help. And I struggled really, really hard. And it wasn't until I got help and I went to see a therapist on my own where I learned some tools to help me cope with the challenges I was having. And I was scared of the consequences. And there are hoops sometimes that you have to deal with, but not doing it is worse because we see it in suicide rates. And the whole point of this foundation is to keep people alive. And I can't tell you how many people, like monthly, where someone we've sponsored, or even one of our ambassadors that's a volunteer for us, has told me, I am alive because of the community that this program has presented me with, or because of the practice of Jiu Jitsu, because of what it does for me. I want to take a second, if you can pull up that Survivor's Guilt video. This is a video of Alan and Joey. It's really just Alan talking. But Joey's the embodiment of the physical disability side of veterans, and Alan is more on the mental health side. And he talks a little bit about some of those challenges, and then how there are different pathways to make things get better. So if you got that ready, go ahead and show it.
Yes, sir.
I'm not any way, no shape or form. I don't try to hide anything. So when I went up there and like on these seminars and say, listen, I've dealt with this as well. I had, TBI. I would forget my freaking car keys in my fridge. You know what I mean? I had just episodes like that. And when you have someone, and I got to be honest with you, it was actually someone else that was actually on a SEAL team, Clint Bruce, who kind of motivated me to tell people, hey, people will listen to you because people see you as a badass, with impenetrable armor. But everybody has, and goes through different things and handles them differently.
Yeah, you have demons. Everybody has their own demons, and they don't let people see them unless you want to let people see them.
And so I think that was like the harder part to get, is the majority of people that are suffering from PTSD, TBI, and all these other issues, harder to bring those in. And then once we actually kind of that's why we like going in tandem, is just because he's the perfect representative for never quitting just because of your physical abilities or inabilities. Mine is, I've been through that. I know what you're talking about. Mine was survivor's guilt. So I struggled with that for years. Guys that were just way better than me. I was a top tier 1 operator for special forces in a SIF unit. And I knew guys that were doing on their 10th deployment when I was on my first. How come they died? Why wasn't it me? I had less training than them, and so you go through that, and then you start feeling, maybe I was a shitbag out there, but it wasn't that at all. And it takes time to kind of get over that. But in the meantime, you need to be, in an environment where that can be kind of nurtured. And I don't mean nurture by oh, poor guy, as in snap out of it. You can do something about it. And this is why we have this earn not given constantly out there, is because we're not handing things to you. If you want to get better, you can. And this is a way how. We never said it was the way, but it's a way, and it's a way that's been proven to be very successful. So we've had a lot of people that have gained a lot from this. And the more podcasts we do, the more seminars that we do, the more we kind of get around and the more ambassadors kind of tell the story, saying we have people from all different walks of life, all different backgrounds, combat MOS, non-combat MOS. So you're not, your situation, you're not a snowflake. There's other people that are going through the same thing you are, and this is a way that they've been able to handle it and get on with their lives.
So I want to talk about with what he's talking about is adaptability and learning to adapt. And I think it's hard as a veteran where we have this identity that has been built into us to sometimes to adapt when that identity is not as much of a part of our lives. One thing that jiu-jitsu has also taught me, and I say this all the time, I would have been a better fighter pilot if I'd done jiu-jitsu before, because then I would have known how to handle failure, because I was terrified of failing. From my days at the Air Force Academy, the stakes always seemed so high. And the way that our community handled debriefs and handled mistakes, you get to the point where the mistakes are so feared that you don't learn from them as much or as well as you could. And that every time there's a failure, you carry that weight on your shoulders. When you do jiu-jitsu, you fail nonstop. You fail over and over, and you have to get back up and go at it again. And you're going to keep failing for a long time before you learn how to succeed and how to win and how to get the tap and how to beat people at this sport, at this game. That is resiliency. You're training yourself through the failures and learning that you don't have to fear it because it's a part of the process. And I can't speak for every branch. I can't speak for every person that's ever been in the military, but I can absolutely tell you, for me, I did not learn how to deal with failure in the military. I didn't. Maybe some other people do. I didn't. I learned it from jiu-jitsu. And I wish I had known about that when I was a fighter pilot. I think that, we join the military, we have to adapt to that lifestyle. We go to combat deployments, we have to adapt to that. We have to adapt again when we come home. Maybe we go back to combat, we have to adapt again. When we become proficient at adapting, we have the opportunity to build and utilize resiliency. Those two things go hand in hand. And that adaptability is most challenged when people leave the military. And that's why I think jiu-jitsu is so powerful, because I think it teaches you how to be resilient, and it makes you not fear the process. You don't like losing. You don't like failing. That never changes. But you learn to use it as a tool instead of fearing it. So that's how, to me, jiu-jitsu and why it's so effective for veterans, but also for people on active duty that are dealing with a lot of the same challenges. I think as an instructor, that time period where I was having my most challenges was when I was an instructor. Because now if I messed up, it wasn't just me. It was everybody I was training. If I made a bad call, all of them are going to suffer too. And I wish I had learned some of these lessons before when I was in that position, because I would have been better at it. I would have been more resilient. And I'm really thankful that I got to learn the lessons eventually. So with that, I'd like to answer any questions anybody might have.
Hey, TJ, I appreciate it. I'll kind of kick off the first question, man. Again, thanks for doing this. But first question is if our Marines want to link up with We Defy, just go onto the website. What's the best process?
So I think for people now that are interested in what we're doing, there's ambassador opportunities where you basically help us on a volunteer basis, fundraise. Some people help us with administrative duties. I started off as an ambassador. Now I'm the vice president of the organization. I have teams where they help us design stuff like for our t-shirts and our rash guards. I've got teams that interact with our veterans that we sponsor as kind of a buddy system. I think that's a neat capability we've got now because we're small, we're young, we're growing. But originally the communities that we took was we would take a veteran and put them in a gym. We'd sponsor them to do jiu-jitsu. We'd pay for their scholarship. But the gym was their community. Now we're big enough that I can assign ambassadors to be kind of like a wingman. We say in the Air Force, like, you know, they're wingmen. To check up on them, make sure they're doing okay, make sure they're making it to class. So that is one thing, if people are interested in knowing about us and understanding what we do, they can do now is become an ambassador. There is another organization, I can't remember if I mentioned it before, I think I did, Ronin. Ronin Foundation is newer, and they are offering scholarships to active duty troops as well. Another partnership opportunity we have, just how we work is we find and vet jiu-jitsu programs out there to try to have gyms that we can send the veterans that we sponsor to. So that's another way too. If you happen to be practicing jiu-jitsu and you have a gym that is a really great program that you think veterans would benefit from, you can also send them to the website, and that'll eventually put them in touch with me because I'm the one that approves all the gyms. I run the ambassador program. I'm basically like the daily operations manager of the organization. So those are a couple ways you can do that. I think there's a lot to be said for volunteering, and I know it's hard with time, and it doesn't have to be with We Defy Foundation, but I think you get a lot out of being a volunteer, and you start to learn lessons that other people learned before you by interacting with them too. So there's a lot to get out of that.
Yeah, and as a part two to that question, if we have guys that want to get into jiu-jitsu, especially Brazilian jiu-jitsu, what's your best recommendation?
I think it's finding a school that's local to you. Time is always challenging, we're all busy. So I think one key is finding a place that's close and then trying it out, maybe trying a couple of gyms if there's a couple of options to see which one is the best fit for you. But as an activity, especially like on the weekends, man, there's so much to gain from it. I would highly recommend checking it out locally and seeing, and getting a couple friends together too, because there's an accountability part to this too, where you bring a buddy or two, you're all way more likely to go and do that. And then you get the benefits to work on that activity together too. So that's what I would recommend, is just get out there in the community, find out what programs are offered, and go for it. On our website, we do have a bunch of gyms that are affiliated with us. So you can always try those gyms too. They're generally veteran friendly. So those are good places to look as well.
Awesome. Thanks for questions from the audience. You guys got anything? Any questions? No? Yep. Okay. Any Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioners right now? Anyone practices right now? Other than you, Stefan? I think you do, right?
I had a few classes from our first time.
Okay. Hey, TJ, you were mentioning before we were going to get, I think his name is Brian in. To
Dave.
Okay.
Yeah. Dave is one of our board members. He's our secretary. And he's about 2 hours away from you guys. So we're working on having him coming in to do some kind of a hands-on seminar with you. He does that all the time. He is a Air Force retiree, 24 years of service, I believe, and lots of special forces experience. He was in the Air Force, but he was out there in the weeds, and he's really good. He excels in that environment. So I'm really excited that he is willing to come out and do something for you guys, and we're going to connect you guys so you can figure out how you want to run that, what you want to do, what you want him to do for you.
Yeah, that's awesome. And again, TJ, appreciate you devoting some time to this. And I think the broader objective of especially this session is I want to open this door to the rest of our organization and frankly promote what you guys do. I think there's some value in it, and given that there's limitations with COVID and everything else, that's not going to stop us from at least getting to the very limits of what we can and cannot do. But especially when you tie into resiliency, I think there's extreme value there. And I know we were talking offline about a buddy of mine, and he's going to see this thing. And but if we have Marines or fellow or even veterans who left the service, this is an avenue for us that we can kind of put a match Marine with an organization to help him or her out, even if you're active duty. And whatever the source of help may be, again, I'm willing to kind of entertain and look at it all. So as you guys kind of go back to your own organizations, I ask that you kind of look and see, is this a potential solution for a problem? And if you don't know, then let's give it a try. Maybe it is. And if you guys want to go, our organization or our unit, we have some funding that we may be able to send some folks to on some off time to go and try out. And but TJ, what I'll do is we'll get the list from your website for gyms in the local area, and we'll kind of vet them to the best of our ability. And I know there's some gyms that are affiliated with We Defy already, so that will be kind of those are good to go. And then we'll try to figure out an opportunity to send, especially you guys who are in this room who kind of decided to come to this, if you guys are interested in going to the next step, and we'll figure out a way to get you to the gym so you can start whooping it off. TJ, I'll kind of pause for one more second, see if there's any other comments. None. I'll let you have the final word, man.
Okay, I know this is veteran from post-military focused, a lot of what we do, but the practice itself is what the important part is, the practice of jiu-jitsu and what the benefits are. We're just providing it to a specific subgroup of people. But where you are right now is the perfect time to try it and start it. I'm a little dude, and I can tell you, man, I've never felt more confident in my ability to handle physical confrontation. I am not concerned about a one-on-one. That doesn't mean I'm not going to get hit or it won't go bad. I know exactly what I need to do, but at the same time, I'm also not looking for it because I know how dangerous it is. I know what I don't know by doing it too. And I think people that get involved in the sport actually on the flip side, they're very confident, but they're less likely to be aggressive and violent because they know how bad and how sideways it can go and how quick. There's kind of an offshoot of what's another thing that's neat about the activity and what you learn. The last thing, I know I said earlier, there's hoops with mental health and getting mental health. None of those hoops are insurmountable, and they're never as bad as we think they are in our head. So I would recommend, and I say this because I deal with guys that we sponsor that need help sometimes too, that we encourage to get, go to the hospital, be hospitalized if they need it. If you need help, get it. Or if you know someone else that needs help, help them get it. Because if you don't and you wait, it only becomes harder. And do it the right way. Go through the hoops. They are there, but they are not as bad as they seem scary, but the consequences of them are much less, especially nowadays, than they were before. And the risk is so worth it because, man, you don't want to let it pile up on you, and you don't want to pile it up on your friends, and you don't want it piling up on the people that look up to you in your units. So I just want to leave you with that part. Make sure you take care of yourself, and don't let the fear stop you from doing it. Be resilient. take that challenge on, and if you need it, get it. So.
All right, thanks, TJ. I appreciate it, and I'll get with you offline there.
Okay, thank you.